pack horses of yesterday. It followed the last great surge of the frontier spirit. Some settlements were hatched along its route, and their remains stand silently along the trails and mountain streams. Man's never-ending search for the rainbow's end brought the gold seekers from the south, from the east, and from everywhere else where miners grubbed for gold. In the rough and tumble saloons of Vancouver, Seattle, and San Francisco, word was passed around that there was gold in the mountain streams of the Cassiar Range, and the rush started. White men, black men, and Chinese coolies came to pan gold. By steamship from Vancouver to Wrangell, Alaska, by riverboat up the Stikine River to Telegraph Creek, then to the Dease Lake and Dease River, where they found some gold and more in the gravels of McDame Creek. Here in the 1870s, they combed the gravels of the mountain streams and moved thousands of tons of rocks and boulders by hand to reach the gold. Here they settled, built sturdy hand-hewn log cabins, lived and struggled. When the gold gave out, they left the land little disturbed. But they left neighbors, friends, and loved ones in a wilderness cemetery, protected and marked. But prospectors continued to probe for new riches in the Cassiar Range. High on a mountain crag, they found an outcropping of another kind of gold, asbestos, and a mine was made. And to serve the mine, a road was built in the valleys between great ranges of mountains from the Alaska Highway above Watson Lake to the base of the Cassiar mine. In the valley of the Cassiar Mountains, Cassiar became a modern mining town that looked up 6,000 feet to the top of the mountain to the mine site. Against the mountain backdrop, the architecture did not despoil the scene. Adopted by the country, miners built their own homes and brought their families into this modern community to live and enjoy the beauties and surroundings of a mountain retreat. Cassiar is a company town, and its first thought was the comfort and well-being of its employees. Religion was given primary consideration, and churches were built in settings that rival scenic Switzerland. The Anglican Community Church, styled to conform with the other permanent buildings in the town site. Children up to grade 9 are taught the same 3 R's as their city cousins in their log school vintage of the 1960s. And for those of a more mature age, the community center offers recreation and athletics in a $250,000 building, the envy of much larger communities. The recreation hall, snack bar, lounge, and billiard hall face the tennis courts and football field. Staffed with a full-time doctor and nurses, the modern 6-bed hospital handles all but the more serious cases of illness and accident. There's money in the local bank. Here, the miners and tradespeople stash away their earnings. And the pokey to put you in if you get too careless with someone else's dough. The community and the surrounding districts come under the jurisdiction of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The scarlet-coated Mountie who enforces law and order seldom has any serious offenders to contend with in Cassiar. Further along the main street are the administrative offices, where management controls the operation of the mine, mill, and the town site. Single men find accommodation in substantial, comfortable panabodes. And to conform with the general architecture of the other larger buildings, the Executive Lodge is built along similar lines. population in the valley is dependent upon the mine on the mountain. This was a favorite pasture for mountain sheep, where they found comfort in bedding down in the soft matted asbestos fiber that had accumulated over the years of exposure to wind and weather. Hunters and prospectors had known of this outcrop, but it was not until 1951, with the improvement in northern transportation, that it was either possible or practical to develop the mine. Day and night, 11 months a year, 3 shifts of miners attacked the mighty mountain peak to drill and blast and muck the rock away to expose more of the rich asbestos ore. Picturesque though the great mountain may be, these miners have all kinds of weather to combat. Fog and mist, snow and zero temperatures, wind and rain, long summer days and short winter ones. But they meet the challenge of the elements. Millions of tons of waste rock at the top of the mountain must be moved to leave the ore body exposed. A huge blast. Tons of explosive rend the ancient rock for ease in handling. The drillers and blasters keep ahead of the shovels and trucks to reduce the overburden on the peak. After each blast, the bulldozer goes to work to clear the roads so the shovels and trucks can move back to the face of blasted rock. The steel teeth of the shovel tear at the rock, and its big shoveling jaw scoops up the rock to load a waiting fleet of diesel trucks, each with a carrying capacity of 20 tons. "24 hours a day, the trucks load, haul, and dump the waste over the mountainside. Other trucks with loads of waste from the ore bench use this smaller rock to build more truck roads on the lower levels, or send it hurtling over the mountainside to the valley below, so far down that big rocks look like pebbles as they reach the distant valley. The ore body, 500 feet in width and 1,200 feet in length, is located some 600 feet below the peak of the mountain, but it dips at a 45-degree angle under the peak, which accounts for the large tonnage of waste rock to be removed before the ore body is completely exposed for open pit mining. From the lower levels above the ore, the trucks wind up the steep curving road to dump their loads of waste down the slopes, where there are patches of perpetual snow and small glacial lakes. Rocks that are too big for the jaws of the shovel to handle are loaded with packs of explosive and blasted into smaller chunks. All loose and overhanging rocks are scaled by men who look like alpine climbers against the sky. Down on the ore bench, the veins of serpentine are easily visible and range up to 3 inches in width, making this mine one of the richest long fiber asbestos mines in the world. Geologists continually sample each new face of ore to determine the quantity and quality of the ore present in the formation. The green shimmer of a fresh-picked sample indicates the richness of this magic mineral. Asbestos is the product of nature's factory and has unique qualities, for it will neither burn nor decay and is impervious to water. As the ore body is stripped of waste and overburden, large areas of the bench are drilled. The holes are loaded with explosive, fused with a combustible fuse to eliminate blasting wire that contaminates the ore. The asbestos ore breaks up readily and is easily handled by diesel-powered shovels. A fleet of trucks have a short haul from the ore bench to the crusher house. The trucks empty their loads of ore onto a grizzly. Here, the large chunks are broken up with a pneumatic drill. Below the grizzly is the primary crusher, where the ore is crushed to approximately 4-inch size and dropped to a surge pile. From here, the ore is withdrawn to a rock rejection circuit, consisting of a crusher and 3 screens between the primary crusher at the mine and the head of the tram line to effect a partial concentration of the ore prior to delivery to the tram line. These buckets travel about 3 miles in their circuit from mine to mill. The loaded buckets pass over a trip switch, which releases a bucket every 27 seconds for its downward descent to the mill. The rock rejection plant above the loading chute screens out about 25% of barren serpentine rock, thereby supplying a larger percentage of fiber to the mill. The upper section of the tram line is about 2,500 feet higher than the unloading station at the mill. Each bucket carries about 3/4 of a ton, and the maximum capacity of the tram is about 2,400 tons per day. In the valley close to the town site is the mill. The loaded buckets on the tram line dump their loads into a hopper. The empty buckets go around over piles of storage ore that can supply the mill in any emergency. The pre-crushed ore dumped into the hopper drops over a grizzly. An endless belt carries the ore to the mill crusher, which gives the final crushing before conveying it to the dryers. In these long cylindrical dryers, a continuous flow of ore goes in to be dried by the roaring oil-heated furnaces. As the ore has a high water content, particularly at the beginning and end of the mining season when rain and snow are prevalent, drying is essential to store the ore at the correct moisture content. With the moisture removed, the ore is then ready for the dry rock storage shed. This storage supplies the mill with dried ore for further processing. The ore ore is drawn from the dry rock storage on an underground conveyor to meet mill requirements. To separate the crushed ore, it first goes over a series of shaker screens, and the fiber is separated from the rock. Fiber is removed from the shaker screens by air suction into collectors. The remaining rock and fiber that has dropped through the first screens continues on through a series of finer shaker screens and collectors to remove all fiber. Cassiar engineers developed a cylindrical screen that whirls the fiber until all impurities are removed. The finished fiber is carried to the collectors above. All remaining pieces of rock and ore from the last series of shakers are put through a fine crusher so that the last remaining fiber can be extracted on finer shaker screens. And waste from this process is carried by conveyor to the tailings pile outside the mill. When the fiber has been cleaned of all rock and dust, it is separated into grades of different fiber lengths and collected into bins above the bagging department. The fiber comes down chutes to the bagging machines. All bags are clearly marked with the grade of fiber, and each bag is weighed to contain 100 pounds of compressed fiber. The bag is then sewn up and is piled on pallets holding 20 bags each, ready for the shipping and storage shed. A dust collecting system filters the air for recirculation through the mill. Each batch of fibers that has been milled is sent to the laboratory for testing to determine the grade and quality. Realizing the importance of constant grades in asbestos milling, the Quebec Standard machine was adopted and 7 other quality control tests were developed. From the Suter-Webb combing test, the percentage of long fibers from the sample is determined and weighed. The Bauer-McNett test was patterned from the same wet classification test used in the paper industry. Continuous testing ensures a product of uniform quality for the world market. The pallets of bags are moved into the warehouse, where they are either stored or loaded on company-owned semi-trailer vans. These trucks are designed to haul bagged asbestos fiber to Whitehorse, and on their return trip, they haul fuel oil in special tanks mounted on the underside of the van, as well as other supplies. They always leave in convoy down the Cassiar Road, which connects with the Alaska Highway on the long haulage route to Whitehorse in the Yukon. At Whitehorse, it is warehoused ready for reshipment by rail to Skagway, where it is loaded on freighters and sent down to Vancouver. The fiber is unloaded at the docks in Vancouver and stored in large company warehouses to await shipment to many industries throughout the world. Nature created asbestos, but science has been making it serve mankind since man has learned to put it to use. Nature has challenged man in its recovery. Through fog and rain, snow and blizzards, short hours of light in winter and short hours of darkness in summer, the work goes on despite these variables. In the long twilight hours of a summer's night, the grandeur of the mountains is punctuated by the steady throb of the engines that run the drills, by the clank of a shovel as it digs into a rock face to spew a load of muck into a waiting truck, as other trucks rumble along the mountain roads. When the top of the mountain has been sheared off and the great ore body of asbestos is laid bare, these truck drivers or their descendants will still be hauling out ore for the mill. Nature has been good to the men who first found and developed the mine, for they are sure there is ore in good supply for at least a half a century ahead. And this wonder mineral that was once the bedding down place for mountain sheep will find its way down the Cassiar Road to new places for new uses that will be conjured up by men of vision in our world of tomorrow.